Hey guys, welcome to another segment brought to you by Atlanta Business Accountants. This is Greg Freeman from Freeman CPA bringing you another short segment. And today we're going to be discussing penalty abatement under the reasonable cause clause. So in essence, when we're dealing with taxation, as you know, we need to submit our taxes, we need to file on time, and there's all these different responsibilities that we have to embark upon as good taxpayers in order to keep ourselves out of trouble with the tax authorities, the IRS, the state, and so on. So here I'm going to be discussing basically relief from penalties assessed for all sorts of different reasons. And just keep in mind that once you get penalized and you didn't pay your tax on time, or you didn't file on time, or you didn't make estimated taxes on time, it all will depend on what exactly you're getting penalized. Look at my video. I'm going to link it down below that discusses different types of penalties because as I mentioned in that video, there's many different types of penalties that are assessed in the tax system. So we have to figure out what exactly happened. Did this happen to your business? Did this happen to your trust? Did this happen to you personally? And that would obviously help dictate what type of situation you're in and if we can abate the penalties, and if we can, under which clause can we abate it by. So for example, we have a first time abatement clause that allows for certain tax types to be basically waived under the first time abatement clause. And that's just basically like a slap on the wrist, but that applies to certain situations. So I'm not going to be discussing here the first time abatement, although it's a very good form of getting rid of certain penalties. The more common ones tend to fall under what would be a reasonable cause. Now, it's very often that people get penalized because of some reason. You know, they didn't file on time, or like I said, they didn't pay their taxes on time, and they're getting penalized. Now, it is our job as tax accountants to help the client, the taxpayer, navigate different waters with the IRS and basically the state as well. So just keep in mind that we're discussing the federal tax laws here, and the state tax laws might be completely different as to what they deem reasonable and have different rules and regulations. So check if it's a state matter, check with that state tax authority to see exactly what the rules and regulations are there, because what applies on the federal side most likely will not apply on the state side. All right, reasonable cause. So as the words imply, do you have reasonable cause? What happened that you did not pay your taxes or file on time, or whatever combination of factors? So very early on, you have to figure out what exactly took place. And for many people, what will end up happening is if you're the one that's calling in for reasonable cause abatement, or your professional tax preparer is calling on your behalf, most likely, if you're getting a person on the other end at the IRS office, they have a software that goes down the line and will basically guide them as to what questions they need to ask the taxpayer, and they will be documenting your response. And if you do not show reason, basically, they will basically disallow the penalty. So reasonable cause is tricky because most people honestly will not be able to show reasonable cause. And there's not really anything in particular that is always going to work. And there is nothing in particular that, that we can say won't work either, because we really have to look at everything case by case. So one person might be dealing with a reliance on a tax professional, and it might not work. And in some cases, it might work because it's all facts and circumstances. Did that, you went to your tax preparer, you handed in everything on time, right? Here's an example. So reliance on tax professional. And this is the most common, by the way, for most people, is that reliance on tax professional. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to my office our office and basically say, hey, I relied on the tax guy. Yeah, that's great. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're also signing the return and you're also the one that's responsible for the tax. Did you act accordingly as soon as that tax professional let you down? Was there steps taken to show and prove that you made everything correct as quickly as possible? And okay, so here's an example, guys. So you come to your tax preparer, you hand in all your information. It's January, whatever, of whatever year, and now you're dealing with waiting on that tax preparer to get everything together. Comes April 14th, that tax preparer disappears. You call the office. Turns out he passed away or she passed away or whatever the case is. And you put your head in the sand. You don't take care of anything. You wake up half a year later. You're like, oh man, I really do need to file these taxes. I probably owe money. You find a new tax preparer. You get everything filed. You send in everything. Do you have reasonable cause? No, you don't, because you waited 6 months to take action. What you should have done is immediately find a new tax preparer as soon as you didn't realize. And by the way, if you haven't heard from that tax preparer for 3 months, why didn't you act sooner? So there's that as well. So everything has to be, first of all, proved beyond a reasonable doubt, in a way where you can easily show that there was communications, that you were emailing, that you took action right away, that as soon as you found out that this professional passed away, you went and hired a new one within a week. And you have emails to reflect that. It's a very different story. That can be reasonable cause. But if you waited half a year and you put your head in the sand and thought that you were just gonna, play that card 6 months down the road, well, they're definitely gonna deny it, because that's not reasonable. All right. And by the way, relying on a tax professional or a lack of knowledge or not understanding the tax code, unfortunately, 99.9% of the time is just not going to be something that you can use as reasonable cause, because at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to, fix it. If you were relying on someone, get another professional involved. If you don't speak the language, it's your responsibility to find somebody that can translate, or find a tax professional that speaks your language. And if you don't understand the rules and regulations and the things you're signing, then it's also on you to have the understanding. So hire who you need to explain it to you in a way that you can understand it. Don't just place all of that burden on somebody else and walk away, because at the end of the day, you're still signing the return under the penalties of perjury, and that weighs heavily on you, and everything's going to matter down the road. So everything within reason, guys. The IRS does have like specific things that will work, and most of the time, but everything has to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So I don't want to leave you with any thoughts of, hey, reliance on a tax professional always works and I'm just always going to use that card. No, I don't want to put any kind of thoughts like that in your head. And the same thing with like something like economic hardships. Can economic hardships work? Yeah, possibly. But again, it might not. It really depends on the situation. It's all case by case. And I found that reasonable cause typically is difficult to find, because most people don't really have a reasonable cause. They just simply put it aside, avoid it, and without knowing the laws, they will come around and basically try to pin it on somebody except for themselves. And that's just never a reasonable cause. All right, this is a good article. I just went Googling and I found some information. I've also taken, obviously, CPE courses on this, and as well as just had in the field experience over many years as to dealing with the IRS. And it's just very complicated to prove reasonable cause, because they just don't want to help give that relief. And if you do have reasonable cause, it's usually very easy to prove. You're like, look, my prior accountant passed away. I couldn't find somebody because it was like, March, and every accountant on the planet is busy. That's reasonable. But you found somebody in May, right? And it took you 2 months to find. That's still reasonable to me. Will that fly with the IRS? Maybe. Can you show it? Can you prove it? Okay, don't forget that the burden of proof is always going to be on the taxpayer. And as long as you're acting within good reason and, taking things even a step further, hey, I didn't know what my tax was, but it was March and they passed away and I couldn't find somebody and I owed last year $5,000 with my return. So in just my desperation, I sent in 5,000 just in case. So it's showing that you're trying to do everything to be compliant, that you filed things timely, and that by the way, if you don't file everything, there's no abatement. Everything needs to be filed, whatever's outstanding, and just to begin the abatement process, just to request that. Until you do that, there's no discussion at all. So yeah, so that's just stacking more chips in your favor, because you want to show that you were acting in a prudent way, and you didn't let anything hold you back from taking initiative and action immediately. And just keep that in mind, that the more you took, the more steps you took to remedy the situation ASAP, the faster, the more likely you are to win a reasonable cause abatement plea. And if you don't, you can always appeal with a tax court. So again, it's all case by case, and the situations can vary greatly. I mean, I've heard of situations where people were out of the country and just or sometimes it's like a natural disaster type of situation. And so always have to review the facts and circumstances. If something like that is going on and you're you have knowledge of what's going on, document things, and just find the right tax professional to help you ASAP. All right, guys, you know where to find us if you ever have questions on penalty abatement, taxation, or any other matters that deal with accounting and finance. We're always here to help. We love helping people. We love keeping people informed and up to date with the most current regulations and out-of-the-box tax strategies. Again, this is Greg Freeman from Freeman CPA signing off and wishing everybody a great one. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.